Hey everyone, today I'm going to talk about the RunCam Split Mini. I never actually planned on doing a review of this camera, but I've had some experiences with it that I would like to share. So I'm going to quickly talk about some of the things I like, some of the things I don't like. I'll show you some of the experiences I've had with it, and I'll try to keep it brief. I'm not going to get into the specs because chances are if you are already looking at buying this camera, you probably know the specs already. So first of all, why did I buy this camera is because of the small form factor. It's got the 20 by 20 millimeter mounting holes, so I was able to put it into this 2.5 inch build. This guy weighs about 170 grams with a 4S battery on it. So get ready for some videos from me flying in places that I wouldn't dare fly a larger copter. I was able to put a RunCam TX200 VTX on the back of it. It doesn't quite fit. This apparently is slightly smaller than a RunCam Micro, which was surprising to me. But I used a little bit of VHB tape and one screw, and it's holding on there fine. It doesn't seem to move around at all. One thing that I do like with using the RunCam TX200 is that this camera comes with this little plug here that you solder on, and you can plug the TX200 directly into it. So that's kind of nice. Comes with a couple little things here. This is just to cover the ribbon cable to hold it down, and then it's got this guy here. This one serves a couple of purposes. One is to hold your micro SD card in, and then the other, for whatever reason, it covers up the microphone. Now, why they chose to do that, I'm not sure. They did put a little piece of rubber or something there so that there's no metal-to-metal contact, but I'm going to come back to that because I took this off. I don't use this anymore. I'll get back to that. We'll show you. So I just want to show you my stack here. This is a prototype frame from Drone Eclipse. I don't know if he plans on releasing it or not, or if he just made a few and that's the end of that. I'm not sure. But anyway, I was able to fit a 4-in-1 ESC flight controller and the RunCam Split Mini into it. It's really tight, obviously, but I made it work, and so far I'm happy with it. So let's go ahead and get into some of the experiences I've had. So the obvious thing that everybody wants to know is, how does this thing look? And this is default settings, recording at 1080 60 frames per second. I'm flying indoors with a lit track, so the lighting's not very good, and you can see that it looks pretty good. It's not GoPro quality, obviously, but for something this small and this form factor, I'd say it records pretty well. One thing I want to talk about now is that little cover over the microphone. I want you to listen to what this thing sounds like. So that's what the recording sounds like with the cover over the microphone. Let me play a clip for you where I took it off. So that's with the cover off from the microphone. It's not a huge difference, but I'm going to play that for you again. And if you listen closely, you'll hear what sounds like metal slapping metal or something. So as you can see, it sounds like crap either way, but to me it sounds slightly better with that cover off. So I've been leaving it off. I'm not particularly concerned about my micro SD card popping out. My flight controller sticks out slightly further than the RunCam board anyways, so I'm not too worried about it. If ever there comes a day when I lose my micro SD card because of that, I'll be sure to come back to this and let you guys know. Getting back into this clip, the next thing I want to talk about is how this board sometimes quits recording. Right here at the end, I ended up crashing, and yet it doesn't show any of it because the board quit recording. The battery did not come unplugged. I did not crash super hard. It wasn't even enough to bend a propeller. Certainly nothing hit the stop button. That would have been basically impossible. Yet you lose, I don't know how much of it, quite a bit. It just quits recording at that point. Now, is this a deal breaker for me? Not really. But you definitely won't be using this camera to do any funny crash compilation videos or anything like that. One of the things that I really like about this camera is that by default it starts recording as soon as you plug in your copter. But real quick, I want to show you what happens to the end of your recording if you simply pull the plug the way that I've been doing. So for this test, I wait till the timer gets to 0 and then I just pull the plug. And you can see that it stops at 2 seconds, which means that it lost the last 2 seconds of my recording. And I did this test a few times, and this was actually the best result that I came up with. I had it lose as much as 5 seconds. So real quick, I'll show you the difference when you actually push the stop recording button at the end, and then you don't lose anything this way. You can actually see the timer go down to 0. I didn't lose any time. So if you're, say, somebody that wants to record you landing or something for a video, whatever, make sure you push that stop recording button. Now I want to share with you an annoying experience that I had. You can see that the colors look a little off. At first I didn't realize what was going on. I thought maybe the LED lights were messing with it. And then I thought maybe it's overheating or something. In my FPV goggles, that top left corner looked completely black. And yes, by the way, the RunCam Split Mini gets very hot, so I would not suggest powering it on and leaving it sit. But you know, all these flights you're seeing indoors here was actually the maiden flights of my 2.5-inch build. So I tried to fly through it. Like I said, thought maybe it was overheating, and I couldn't deal with it. It looked really bad in the goggles. So I take it home thinking, okay, maybe I'll try to fix it, and voila, it's fixed. And yes, by the way, this is my kitchen room. I live in the Bay Area. It's expensive here. Leave me alone. Anyways, I thought it was fixed. I take it back out, and here it looks like shit again. And I didn't know what the hell was going on. I just flew it anyways. At this point, I was outside, and I could see well enough. And I'm sure that there's somebody out there that's going, Sean, you're an idiot. I know exactly what this problem is. But I had not yet experienced this. I didn't know why the sky looked fine, the blue looked fine, and everything else was like pink. So for those of you that have not experienced this yet, like I had not, let me show you what the problem was. At some point, this little infrared lens had come loose and popped over to the side. And so I put that back into place, and voila, it's fixed. But don't do like I did. Don't just think that it's fixed. Make sure that you remember to readjust your lens, because otherwise you'll take it out like I did, and you end up flying with this ridiculously unfocused lens. And I ended up flying it this way also anyways, because I was already there and I couldn't loosen it with my fingers. Okay, so I've talked plenty long enough. I'm going to try to wrap this thing up. I'll leave you here with some flight footage. I'll talk about the good, talk about the bad, and show you some DVR. Real quick, I just want to point out, as I flew under those trees, you notice going from light to dark and dark to light, the camera seems to transition really well. In fact, I think it does even better than the GoPro in that aspect. So just wanted to point that out real quick. So going into a recap here, the board itself seems to get really hot. I would not suggest powering on and leaving it just sitting. I think it kind of needs some airflow. I feel like at some point it may overheat or something. Obviously I don't know that for sure, just a thought that I have. The cover for the micro SD card, I'll leave that up to you whether you like it or not. Now that I'm thinking about it, I may end up throwing it back on just to make sure that it keeps my micro SD card in. I really think that the sound recording on this thing sounds horrible either way, so I probably wouldn't use it for a video. So that little bit of extra noise I'm getting with the cover on, it probably doesn't matter anyways. Losing the recording at the ends of your videos, just make sure, if you want to get the end of it, just make sure you push that stop recording button. I'm gonna go ahead and show you some DVR now. And one other thing that bugs me about this is you cannot change any of the settings for your FPV camera. Usually I go into all of my cameras, I change the settings slightly at least. I like to lower the contrast, I like to give it a little bit of extra color gain, things like that. You can't do that with this. In fact, the only thing that I think you can change is for the HD recording, which is the exposure. I don't believe there's any other things that you can change. So that to me is a big downfall. But luckily the camera looks pretty good anyways, just by default, so that's alright. Something that I haven't gotten working is OSD settings using my radio. You're supposed to be able to set up channels, switches, get it going with your radio. I've not yet been able to do that. I've set it up, I've verified that the channels are working, and it doesn't do anything. So I don't know if I'm doing something wrong apparently, or what. I can't get OSD with this camera. Maybe since I'm not using those switches, maybe I can get the OSD from my flight controller to go on to the camera. I'm not sure. That's something I haven't yet figured out. I've only had this thing about a week. Lastly, the latency. I've had people ask me about the latency of the camera. Everybody knows that this camera's got a little more latency than, say, a RunCam Swift. To me, it's not enough to care. I'm using this copter as a freestyle copter. I don't know. To me, it's not enough to even notice, but I'm not super fast, so I don't know. You'll have to decide that one for yourself, I suppose. So anyways, I'm going to wrap this up now. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we'll talk to you soon.